Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 26th. You are watching The Really Big Show on Now Media. I'm Andrea Jensenberg, filling in for Jim Check, and with me, Ian Burns. How are you today?
I'm swell as heck. How are you?
Swell as heck as well. It's always a lot of news these days. Focus turns to carbon capture, but Green's not impressed. Is Carney to blame for Nutrien's decision to choose the U.S.? Carney also apologizing for his "who cares" comment. Not one, but two Joly blunders. And Ukraine agrees to a peace proposal. So starting it off, Prime Minister Mark Carney apologized in the House of Commons for his "who cares" comment when asked about trade relations with the States. The comment was widely criticized as tone-deaf, as many Canadians do indeed care. And we've got a clip of him at the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, on the night of the election, when I had the great honor from my constituents of being elected as a deputy of this House, unlike some others in the chamber today, I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue. And the serious issue is, what progress are we making structurally? Best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals in the world.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did make a mistake. He's made many mistakes. In fact, it's been nothing but mistakes when it's come to trade. Look at it. This Prime Minister promised that he would negotiate a win on softwood lumber. Now he says, who cares? Well, Conservatives care. Within 80 days of the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, taking office, he managed to eliminate American tariffs on softwood lumber and get refunds of them. This Prime Minister has now had 8 months, and those tariffs have now more than tripled. Prime Minister asks, who cares? I can tell you, on behalf of all the MPs on this side, we care about the jobs that are being lost in Lumbertown. Why doesn't he?
Mr. Speaker, this government cares about creating jobs in this country. That's why we proposed a budget before this House that catalyzes $1 trillion of investment over 5 years. The member opposite and his colleagues, those who could make it into the room, voted against that budget, voted against Canadian workers, voted against Canada's future. We believe in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we are building it.
Not sure if we can conflate the Harper days with today, but
The highlight of that for me is that they laughed at the thing he said that wasn't funny, where he made a joke about Pierre Poilievre not being elected.
Hot shot.
And the Liberals were like falling over themselves laughing at that. And then right at the end there, he's talking about the budget, and he's saying, the Conservatives, the ones that made it into the room, which is kind of funny. It's kind of like taking the pee out of Andrew Scheer. But nobody laughed at that. Don't get it, really. It was just because they're not really in it for the humor, are they? They're just in it for the bullying. But I thought, I thought that was rather disappointing from both of those gentlemen. I mean, Pierre Poilievre's guilty, I think, of sanctimoniousness there somewhat. The truth is that the question, it matters what question he responded, who cares to. The question was, when was the last time you spoke to Donald Trump? It's a bit sort of extrapolating and get on your high horse about Lumbertown and all the rest of it. I mean, obviously, as we've said, and as anybody can see, that is his number one priority, is to try and get this deal sorted. It's the number one priority of Canada, basically, and every official in this country.
I think the worst thing he said was that there was no burning issue to discuss with the president. That was worse than the who cares.
Yeah, I would say that was the real screw up. Not who cares, but that was just like, I think he just wasn't thinking. And he was trying to actually imitate Trump, who's been asked on a number of occasions, when are you going to speak to Mark Carney again? And he said, well, I've got nothing to speak to him about. He's just trying to do the same thing. And he's trying to like we said yesterday, he's just trying to give the impression that he's like cool and it's fine and he doesn't need this deal kind of thing. But it did come across awfully, didn't it? It came across very, very poorly. And I mean, it's an open goal. I'm not necessarily blaming Pierre Poilievre and the rest of them for jumping on this. It's obvious. It's almost like it's too easy. You've got to seize hold of that. But it is still a little bit kind of disappointing. It's a bit like a pantomime, isn't it, when you watch from the outside? But that's politics for you.
Yep. And the Ottawa-Alberta Memorandum of Understanding drops tomorrow, but it's basically been confirmed through sources that while the feds are loosening regulations, the real barriers, private funding, Indigenous approval, negotiations with BC, remain untouched. So we've got another clip from the House of Commons discussing this issue, but yeah, we basically already know what's going to be in the announcement tomorrow.
Speaking of Canadian interest, this Prime Minister opposed the pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, just like his Liberal predecessor blocked that same pipeline. On Thursday, he'll make one of his grand announcements, waving around a meaningless so-called Memorandum of Understanding. If it's anything other than a public relations ploy, why won't he say, on what date will construction begin on a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific?
Hear it, hear it. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes the question reveals everything. The Memorandum of Understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions, because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree and support. All stakeholders have to back. That's one Canada.
Necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions. Pretty disappointing on Alberta's side, I'm sure.
Well, I think the most disappointing thing, or the most kind of horrifying thing, unless it's just yet another poor choice of words from this Prime Minister that struggles so much with words, is that he said the BC government must agree, and also all First Nations must agree. He said something about a consensus, I think was the word he used at the end there, wasn't it? That's not going to happen. The BC government's never going to say yes to this. And there are some First Nations that are just completely intransigent on this issue. They will never, ever, under any circumstances, say yes to this. So if that's true, what he just said in the Commons there, then this pipeline is dead already. It's dead on arrival. It's not going to happen. 100% guarantee will not happen. So you kind of have to ask that question to Mark Carney, and I'm sure he'll be asked that tomorrow. Well, I bloody hope so. The journalists tend to be the ones that actually get to follow him around and ask him questions, don't tend to be that curious, but I would hope he's asked that question. You said it's not going to happen unless BC is involved and unless First Nations are involved. Like, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure about that? Because if you're saying that, then RIP pipeline, it's already over.
It is indeed. Elizabeth May, though, not very happy even with those wishy-washy comments about the pipeline. She's got something to say about it.
Outrageous the British Columbia government hasn't been involved. It's absolutely outrageous to imagine that the Council of the Haida Nation, the coastal First Nations of British Columbia are clear, as are most British Columbians. So the Liberals will be making a grave mistake, and I think most of the Liberal MP backbenchers are really worried, and they should be. So one just has to hope that these are trial balloons that will be shot down soon, because there's no such thing as a pipeline through British Columbia's northern territory to new tankers on our waters. No way, no how.
Can you elaborate on why you think Liberal MPs should be worried?
They'll lose their seats. And they like their seats.
What stock are you putting into this MOU possibly changing anything? I mean, an MOU isn't a legally binding agreement. It seems there's going to be a lot of conditional language. Like, how much stock are you?
That's just it. I want to read it, and it does seem like there's going to be a lot of conditional language, particularly around the idea of carbon capture and storage. That notion itself needs to be carefully examined, because we haven't seen any place in the world where it actually works. So if that is going to be a key component. But again, if there were compromises from the Alberta government that said they would actually reduce emissions, or put in place a price cap or a production cap, there are questions floating out there as to what this MOU will actually contain, and that's what I like to do, is read it first. But I'll be looking at it closely.
That's funny, isn't it? The Queen of Green comes out and says, there's no evidence that actually works. Uh-oh.
Well,
So what are we going to do then?
It's an artificial market. There's no value to carbon capture other than virtue signaling, really.
Well, if the entire planet got behind it, and if China and India and the United States and Nigeria and Indonesia and Vietnam and et cetera, if they all did that big time, went all in, then maybe.
Well,
maybe. I mean, but there is a question. There is actually a genuine question as to whether it truly works. So, but that's the thing. Canada doing it, yeah, absolutely. It's 100% futile. And even somebody from a climate think tank came out and said, even if you go ahead with pathways with this one attached to Alberta, that would be so inadequate. Even if you live in this fantasy land where Canada can actually make a difference, it's completely inadequate, this one. And he says you would need 8 of them, 8 pathways for it to actually have any kind of effect, according to these people who are already, I think, a little bit deluded in thinking that Canada can make a difference.
And for those who don't know, this carbon capture technology is essentially huge fans that suck in air, sequester the carbon into some sort of package, you drive it somewhere else, and you bury it. So investing in those technologies as opposed to trees, which do that without creating any extra emissions, I do agree the whole world has to get on board, but I don't think fans sucking in air to get the carbon is the way to lowering emissions. It does seem like just...
There are a few different ways of doing it, but like you can do it with a pipeline as well. I think Pathways comes with a pipeline, and that's the idea, that it'll be piped directly. But that is, even that, like, it's worth bearing in mind that it's quite experimental technology, and it's not necessarily, it's not the silver bullet. And to the extent that Elizabeth May, who is, she goes out like a vampire hunter at night trying to find emissions to kill. If she's not impressed, and she actually is a bit miffed about it, as you can hear, And it's not just her, I should say. A lot of the kind of out there environmentalist activist types, I imagine probably Stephen Guilbeault is also in that category. A lot of them, if not most of them, aren't very impressed by carbon capture. It's not a technology that the green movement, or the more extreme ends of the green movement, appreciate. They're not fans of it at all.
Yeah, and I think their skepticism is warranted. So it's not looking like we're that much closer to an oil pipeline, although it is probably Canada's simplest route to prosperity and would be a huge step in diversification from the States. And we've also lost Nutrien's massive export terminal thanks to regulations and lingering doubts over BC's coastline. So we're going to hear again from the House of Commons, but it just seems like loss after loss this week.
My question is for the government leader. Last week, Nutrien, a flagship Canadian company and the world's largest potash producer, chose to invest $1 billion into a new export terminal, not anywhere in Canada, but in Longview, Washington. Their message was clear. The decision was purely economic: lower costs, fewer bottlenecks, and more reliable transportation infrastructure. After a decade of Liberal governments, Canada's ports are congested, labor disruptions are routine, regulatory approvals are slow, and promises of streamlining our supply chains remain just that. How did your government allow for $1 billion investment to slip out of our hands and into the United States, giving Donald Trump a $1 billion win, while giving Mark Carney and the Canadian people a $1 billion loss?
Senator Morrow.
The government value that kind of investment and you want to have it in Canada. And the answer of the government is the first bill that have been tabled and adopted prior to in the beginning of the mandate. It's Bill C-5. Bill C-5 provide new and the actual budget provide new investment in infrastructure, That was a part of your question. Because of infrastructure, we know that we need to invest in our infrastructure. That's exactly what the government is committed to. It's committed to by Bill C-5 and by the last budget that have been tabled. We want to grow a strong economy through investing in our infrastructure. And further investment of that kind will be realized here in Canada if we do properly, and that's the commitment of that government.
Senator Houssakos.
Old Liberal government, new Prime Minister, same results. And I appreciate the results of the last election. That was 8 months ago. Nutrien's move is a damning indictment of Canada's supply chain infrastructure problem. When a Canadian company says it's cheaper to move potash through a U.S. port, the problem isn't Nutrien, it's Ottawa. How can Canadians trust this government or anything they say to fix our supply chain and reignite and ingest some confidence back into this economy?
Senator Moreau.
That's what the government is doing day after day since the last election. You're referring to an old government. I'm referring to old preamble in your question, because since the last decade, Canadians have to make a judgment. They made it last April, Senator Houssakos, and their judgment was to elect the actual government, and their confidence, just like the government, that our economy will grow.
But is it a new government, or is it just same government with a different face?
Well, I guess it's the new guy in charge, and it is strictly speaking a new government. It's a new parliament, but yeah, sort of in spirit, is it a new government? That remains the question. In some ways, yeah, it is a new government. I think that's fair to say. But I have to say off the bat there, what a snooze fest that is in the Senate. God, I think I'm gonna play my kids that at night instead of white noise. That'll send them off to sleep, I think. But the Nutrien thing anyway, which is a bit less sleepy, a bit less boring. Some crazy stuff I've been reading about that, like how they met with the federal government in September, 5 minutes ago, really, isn't it that? And clearly they were not reassured during that meeting that they could do this out of BC, that it was a good idea to expand a port in BC. And it comes down to it. It's talking about boring things, it is almost a little bit boring, or at least it would be for some people. It seems like one of their main objections is a lack of railway capacity, and it's to do with trains. But that, some people find that boring. Other people, of course, love trains. But this is like macroeconomics. This is like big boy economics, the sort of thing that Mark Carney is supposed to be an expert in. You'd think that he would have heard that in September. That would have been communicated to him, that there was a problem with the railways and some other issues with like port capacity. You'd think he would have heard that, and he thought, great, this is a perfect opportunity to build Canada strong. Let's do some nation building and do whatever it takes to improve the railway situation. But clearly that hasn't happened. Nutrien they've not been reassured, so they've thought, well, bugger it then, we'll go to America. So it does definitely raise questions about what is Mark, because you asked is this a new government? You asked that question. It's valid, I think, then to ask, based on this information that we have, to what extent is Mark Carney really doing things in a different way? Like, in what sense is he actually going to break through the sclerosis of the previous governments and actually say things that are just unimaginable based on the last couple of decades, and just come out and say, yeah, well, they needed a railway, or they needed more rail capacity. We're just going to build it, because that's the kind of country we are now. That's the kind of federal government I'm going to lead. We're going to be doers. We're going to fix things. But that hasn't happened. So I think, yeah, you won't be the only person wondering, like, is this really new? Or are we just going to continue to stagnate, but with a bit more sort of panache, a bit more style, and some rhetoric about elbows?
Yeah, we haven't seen action yet, even though the Prime Minister did promise to fast-track nation-building projects. He created that Major Projects Office. And the next story is another one of these projects that's not going forward, the Sissons Mine. Oh. Have we lost everything, Rommel?
Do we have that one?
Oh, my screen's just gone black. Alrighty.
Well, I'm looking at it here anyway, and yeah, just saying that it failed to meet
Next slide. Yeah.
even a single solitary one of 40 conditions required for approval. So yeah, that isn't a very good start, is it? And considering that these ones that were chosen anyway, these projects were already kind of winners anyway. It's not like he was backing a tough one. So if the winners can't even get off the ground, then that doesn't bode well for the more difficult ones, does it?
No, I looked into it, and as of now, 0 projects from the list have advanced to construction or even final investment decision. But one thing we are moving forward, and that's allegedly part of this Alberta MOU, is the Pathways Program, which is an initiative aimed at achieving net zero emissions by 2050 through large-scale carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology. So we got our man, François-Philippe Champagne, to talk about how we're going to be funding that one. It's a good screenshot of him.
It's perfect, isn't it?
I thought you were asking about the... No, something else.
Okay.
No,
I'm asking about Pathways.
Yes.
Where's the money going to come from if we're going to go ahead with Pathways?
Well, listen, I would not prejudge what's going to be the next step with respect to that. I'm very familiar with Pathways. It's a good project, I would say, for Canada. Decarbonization. There's a lot that the proponents have put forward in that, because this is going to be, when we say we want to be an energy superpower, technology is on our side, I would say, in many ways. And Pathways is a great way to decarbonize. But again, that would be a question that the major project office will have to look with the proponents and see, what is a possible way forward. But I don't want to prejudge that discussion that will happen.
À quel point il y a des gens qui doivent encore être convaincus à ce moment-ci?
So I don't know if you heard an answer to that there, but I certainly didn't.
No, just some waffling.
But it's supposed to come from private companies are supposed to do it, but I don't know. I mean, the whole thing, politically, but also technologically, as we just discussed, there's so many question marks. And I've got here, it's Ian Sanderson, Pembina Institute. He's the one that said, we need about 8 more Pathways projects if you actually want to achieve a decarbonized barrel of oil in the pipeline. I mean, so it's not satisfying anyone. Who's happy about this? I mean, I can't imagine that the oil companies that are going to end up footing the bill, I don't think they're happy.
No.
I mean, the Liberals seem happy, but are they really? The more hardcore green people like Elizabeth May, they're not happy. Think tanks, not happy. So who exactly is this going to gratify? Who's going to be pleased about this? Because at the minute it seems to be Mark Carney and Champagne. Who else even wants this?
The green technology companies that are getting 75 cents back from all these subsidies for the CCUs. I think they're probably not too unhappy about it, at least. So.
Yeah, what's that company called again? Begins with a B. They've got some business with carbon capture, haven't they?
I've heard
Brookfield, are they called? Something like that?
Billions, another word with a B. We did, however, see a 70 billion investment pledge from the United Arab Emirates. Who knows if some of that will go towards Pathways? It's apparently record-setting, but it's a bit ironic as those billions originate from oil money, which is something Canada is seeming to run away from generating itself.
Well, Arabs have a very good and unique sense of humor, in my opinion, and they love a laugh. So I reckon the United Arab Emirates, if that is the case, that they're going to put some of this money into that and then just harvest it back from the Canadian taxpayer. If that's what's going to happen, I'm sure they'll have told some excellent jokes about that in Abu Dhabi behind Mark Carney's back. Because that is just, I mean, you can't really get much more stupid than that, can you? Or is it stupidity? Or is it some kind of 9D underwater chess going on here?
Climate grift, as Jim calls it, because when you look into the budget, it does seem like that's a loophole that other private investors from not inside Canada can also get those. Anyways, moving on, we're announcing an announcement of a uranium export deal with India. Globe and Mail has that one.
It's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, uranium is another one of those magic weapons. It's one of those trump cards that Canada has. Canada's uranium supply is tip top. It's pretty good. Saskatchewan again, just like potash. That's why Saskatchewan is so important, even though it just gets slapped around and treated like a sort of unwanted orphan in Canada. Saskatchewan is immensely important in terms of like Canada's geopolitical power and influence in the world. And yeah, uranium to India. I mean, they already have nuclear weapons, the Indians obviously, so it's not like we can feel like we're going against nuclear non-proliferation or something like that. It's fine. So, and India, I don't know, Carney seems very hot on India, doesn't he? So
Yeah, nuclear
why
power,
not, eh? Why not be friends with India?
unless something disastrous happens at a nuclear power plant, it's actually one of the greenest ways to produce energy. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, in terms of the waste that it produces, which is the thing that freaks people out, even that's tiny. And I mean, the best thing about nuclear is that you don't need to buy much land or occupy much land. Whereas for all other forms of energy, it requires quite a lot of land. Whereas nuclear is just like, I think it's like half of an acre or something, or a couple of acres. It's like barely anything. And then you just have a little waste disposal site, which you concrete in after you put the waste in. I mean, nuclear is amazing, and Canada played a very important role actually in developing civil nuclear power. So there's nothing to dislike about nuclear.
Nope. Nokia has announced that they will be opening a campus in Ottawa, which Mélanie Joly has used as proof of Canada's leading the global tech race. This tweet had me laughing. Get it up on screen there. Because I guess we led the nuclear to some degree, but I'm not sure if Nokia, is that, are they leading in tech, Nokia? No, like I like Nokia, but...
Maybe I'll get my 3310 out. I've got that somewhere in a dusty pile. And then I can feel like I'm part of this, I'm on the vanguard of technology. I don't know. It's just one of the many reasons why Mélanie Joly is ridiculous, frankly. She says things that are just, not only are they untrue, but it's kind of boosterism to the point of parody. And you don't want to be like that. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump does this all the time. And he often sounds ridiculous when he says it, but because he's the president of the United States, he's got almost like a 50-50 chance of being right whenever he says, and we got the world. It's like, probably like there's a really good chance that that's accurate. But when you're a minister in Canada, yeah, you shouldn't really throw around these things willy-nilly.
Yeah, I tend to talk quite hyperbolic. Blacklocks is reporting on another Joly blunder. This one's quite a bit worse. Apparently, she had not read the contract that gave $15 billion to Stellantis, who has now departed from Canada.
Best thing about this, by far, is what she said. Did she say it? Yeah. So I think this was like the fiery interaction that she had with a Conservative MP that Jim and I discussed. I think that's what it is, where she said, just look at the contracts, then you will be informed, peasant. And at the same time as she said that, she hadn't even read it. It's classic. It's like people that say, like, why don't you read a book? It's like, have you read any lately? And then the answer is often no, they haven't.
Nope. And again, more bad news for Canada. Volunteers are quitting the Canadian Armed Forces due to inadequate housing and health care, says an internal report. This is another one from Blacklocks.
That's a really big one as well, which the report says loss of spousal employment. That's a massive one because they have to move usually to like pretty sort of isolated parts of the country onto a base and bring their wives or husbands with them or whatever, and then they're just there and they can't do anything. It's like, what the hell am I going to do in the middle of nowhere here?
And then you've got
there's so many, there are so many disadvantages of that variety associated with being in the armed forces. And then just think about it. On top of that, they also get paid less money than some, press officer, some press secretary to Stephen Guilbeault, who I've been asking for an interview for about 8 or 9 months now and still haven't got an interview with. So not very good at a job either. So it's like that person gets close to double or more what your average Canadian Forces member gets. Plus, she gets to live in Ottawa, one of Canada's like biggest cities where most people can find work. Whereas these soldiers, they have to live, or whatever they are, these forces members have to live sometimes like hundreds and hundreds of miles away from a town or something like that. So their wife or their husband is just like at a loose end. And then things like daycare, obviously, it's just they're not really treated with respect, are they? And that applies even after this pay rise that they've been given.
Yeah, bureaucrats don't have to sacrifice their lives either, so
yeah, indeed, though you'd think that they do based on how hard they complain.
Yep, no doubt the military is underfunded, but the National Research Council confirms that it spent more than $60,000 on lounge chairs and bistro furniture for a rooftop patio. Do you think this is one rooftop patio that was $60,000?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they went to IKEA, does it?
No.
It's hilarious, isn't it? And if you work for a furniture company or whatever it is, some kind of supplier of goods, and you pick up the phone and it's like, "Hi there, I'm from the department of," you must just be like, "Yes, thank God, they're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on garbage, not care about the price, and let's go to the pub to celebrate."
Yep, more and more stories about feds spending reckless money, irresponsibly spending money. Blacklock's also reported that the Department of Housing admits it faked a construction site as a backdrop for Prime Minister Carney's housing speech. This cost a mere $32,000.
Yeah, but look at Gregor Robertson. Look how cool he looks, huh? Carney's looking quite cool as well, actually. So it was worth it, because that's what that is. It was for a photograph, after all. So we have to really analyze this photograph, because that's a $33,000 photograph.
You're right. It is a good photograph.
But yeah, they were challenged at the time about it, and they as usual were kind of reluctant to go into it. But here we go. Blacklock's reveals it was all fake.
Great reporting from Blacklock's as usual. And Crown corporations dish out $190 million in bonuses. Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
That is more evidence, really, that the public sector is where it's at, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. And the Canada Infrastructure Bank was one of the ones highlighted in this story. They paid out almost $9 million in bonuses. But although Cabinet is increasing taxpayer funding for the Canada Infrastructure Bank, the bank itself says it's self-sustaining.
This is the same bank that gave $1 billion to BC Ferries, so that BC Ferries could give $1 billion to the Chinese Communist Party to build some ferries. Well, if they say so.
Yeah, well, also I just think we've seen an infrastructure project after infrastructure project. Bureaucrats aren't the best ones at doing this. You can do it for much cheaper usually in the private sector. So why do they keep putting their hands into all these?
I mean, the idea behind this infrastructure bank was that it would kind of go and do, that it would give money to projects that would struggle to get private finance. That's usually the justification for any state intervention in the likes of finance, the world of finance. But I mean, I don't know if that's true at all. Like, if you were planning on spending money with the Chinese Communist Party, I mean, the private finance world seems to love giving money to the Chinese Communist Party. I'm sure they would have said yes.
Yep. 2 days ago, we learned that the Prime Minister has a potential 2,000 conflicts of interest. So I thought it'd be interesting to go over to the CBC again and see if they're reporting on this yet. See if the Nutrien deal's on there too. I haven't had a look yet.
Let's have a look. They have actually got a good story today, which they did. Although they've got Hong Kong at the top. I don't know what they're doing there. But they have got a good story today about where they did some freedom of information requests, I think, or something like that. They went to Stats Canada and they got some data about violence on public transport and how it's increased enormously. But I can't even see that story. They've just buried it already, even though that's their best story.
Yeah, Hong Kong, the Olympics.
They are a strange set of cats, aren't they, the CBC people? I just like, what were they thinking about, man?
Yeah. Yep. And only 54 condos were sold in Toronto last month as a group warns of looming industry-wide shutdown. Real estate market.
Hard times, yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean, that is crazy, isn't it? 54 condos in Toronto.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised that like predatory behemoths aren't moving in to try and pick them up, you know, when demand is low. But I guess even the big sort of venture capital and stuff, even they must be looking at it and saying, no way, it's overpriced.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's going to go lower. Hopefully not for the citizens of Toronto. And
Lightning Rod. Sorry, I have to, he's been given it large this whole time. I haven't, because Jim's not here. I don't really have time to engage you as much as I would like. But I do know people at the CBC. Obviously, like, come on, you're saying things that you have no possible way to support. You don't have any evidence. Somebody that used to work at Kelowna now worked at the CBC for quite a while. Actually, quite a lot of people did. You could even have done that. You could have Googled. And also early on, he was on about oil, and he was saying, why does who's going to need 100 million barrels of oil a year or something? How much oil do you think Canada produces? It's not 100 million barrels, about 5 or 6 million barrels. And there is plenty of demand for oil. Consult the internet. It's right there. It's ready to feed you this information.
Yeah, with the AI revolution, there's definitely a huge increase in energy needs. We're going to end this section on a high note, though. Cannabis tax has raked in $5.4 billion in revenue. So that's a win for the government.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Strange, really, but
makes sense. I
mean, it's considered to be like a bit of a sort of damp squib at the minute. It's considered to be a struggling industry a little bit, isn't it? But I guess they're still getting taxi poo.
I think it's a struggling industry because, again, government regulations, government packaging, which we saw yesterday, they're going to try to maybe make people put a warning label on wine. So when you got to jump through all these hoops as a company, it's good the feds are profiting on it, but that's true. There's a question, how's the industry doing as a whole?
Well, the black market as well has never left, has it? It's still there. And people who are into that kind of thing, like their black market dealer, they can get them stuff that they prefer and they can get it cheaper. So it's kind of hard to compete against that unless you're. But we were told, weren't we, by the people that were so in favor of legalization, that it would completely kill the black market. Turns out they were rather wrong about that, as they were wrong about many other things.
Yeah, BC. Moving on to our BC news, BC Bud was a huge part of that black market. Let's move it away.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Now there's a civil lawsuit emerging from the Cowichan Tribe land decision, which has seen many homeowners in Richmond very confused about home ownership. 2 people on title now, so.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. I mean, this is an appeal to get a class action going, or like a submission to try and get a class action going, which is definitely not a guarantee. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to get it certified, as they say. But there's some interesting stuff in there. It's like one of them is a Richmond. It's like a John Doe. He didn't give his name, I don't think, or her name, but is a Richmond property owner, and they say that they suffered psychological trauma, I believe is the phrase. And people put that sort of thing in lawsuits, don't they? Where it's like they slipped over in a grocery store and now they're agoraphobic and scared and it was psychologically traumatic. So people do that kind of thing all the time, and you just sort of like tut and laugh at it. But I think in this case, that has to be right. Can you imagine the torment, the psychological torment these people in Richmond must be going through now? Like, usually in a place like Canada, like almost your entire life savings, all your wealth is in the bricks of that house. You know, that's like
That's your nest egg.
everything. That's your savings account. That's like, it's also like the physical representation of all the hard work you've done in your life. And then imagine just being told, like, hold on, actually, because in the 19th century, certain individuals fished in this area. This is no longer your house, but it belongs to someone in Vancouver Island. You're like, God, you would, I honestly cannot imagine what that would do to a person's psychology. It really must be traumatic.
Yeah, especially the lawyer Jeff Moist that we interviewed a few weeks ago. He was saying it's probably going to be 7 years before there's any true clarity on this. Maybe they'll start moving that along faster if more of these claims come up. But from what I remember, I think they have to wait for like Canadian Supreme Court to go on it. Maybe this civil suit will help move that along.
Will speed it up, but yeah, they're waiting for that. They're waiting for it to go to Ottawa. But they're just, you know, they act like it's the Greek gods or something on Apollo, not Apollo, sorry, on Olympus, like Apollo. They act like gods, and it's like you do the sacrifices and you pray to them, and maybe they'll respond to you, or maybe they'll not, and maybe it'll be within 5 years, or maybe not. It's like there's no certainty gained from that, and I think, you know, whatever happens, it's going to be a long haul, isn't it? And that ambiguity about who owns the land is not going to go away. So the people in Richmond, God bless them, they're going to be going through hell for quite a while yet. And the worst thing is, it might be heard by the Supreme Court, and they might say, "Yeah, that's good. It is the Cowichan land. See you later." Then what? Then what happens? Like, it's so it's not. People seem to think that that the Supreme Court is gonna back fee simple, but I don't know. Is it? Let's wait and see.
And in the meantime, maybe you can get a mortgage, maybe not. Moving on to our international news.
Or sell, really. That would be the other thing. Like, what if you wanted to go, like me and Jim and I discussed this, like, what if you wanted to, like, your family, as often happens, like a member of your family moves somewhere, or like your spouse does something like that. These are the circumstances in which people often say, okay, I need to leave now. I need to go and move to Halifax or something, or Toronto or something like that. If that happens, how are those people going to do that? Like, it might be the last sort of few years of someone's life where they want to go and live with their kid in Toronto, let's say, and they just can't do it because they're trapped in Richmond because of this extraordinary decision, you know? And it's just beyond the imagination, frankly.
And if they uphold this decision, are we going to see more and more land being claimed across Canada?
Well, we've already got the Kamloops thing, and then there's another one.
Yeah, the Alaska.
Yes, is the answer. I mean, there are already ones in there, but the success that this appears to have had on the face of it, the initial success, and the kind of the weakness of the BC government in particular, because they're so unsure of themselves philosophically. Like, press conference that David Eby's asked about this, he will refer to you know, and land that was stolen from these people by colonists who came in and took it. It's like he's very much swallowed the kind of left-wing revolutionary attitudes that have led us here in the first place. Eby believes that. He swallowed it and regurgitates it often. So there's that. It's like, in a sense, they're pushing against an open door, a lot of these land claimants. And the thing is, Eby keeps talking about compensation. He says, we want to make sure that property rights are guaranteed, but the people that make the claims need to be adequately compensated. He says something along those lines. So, you know, if you think, no matter how flimsy your claim is, for example, if your ancestors 10 generations ago fished somewhere, you're going to say, all right, let's stick in a claim and we might get $5 billion. Obviously, you're going to do that. And even if you're not minded to do that, there'll be a lawyer out of Vancouver that will come and knock on your door and say, come on, let's do it. I'll just take 15%.
And I've heard it speculated that all these, you know, they put in the email, what do you call that again? The disclaimer. It's like
the land acknowledgements.
Yes, that there's so many people who have in writing now, I acknowledge that I am on the unceded territory of the Syilx people, the unceded story. So in law, written word is paramount.
Well, there's a case going on. It's interesting you mentioned that about Silix, because obviously there's a case going on, isn't there, with UBC Okanagan. They were sued, I believe, by a professor that said that those land acknowledgements were, I can't remember what he said, unconstitutional or something like that. I haven't covered that story, but I sort of know it vaguely. So already there are questions being raised about that, and that's legal as well. That's the real sort of a real legal challenge. But just in terms of sort of like philosophical discussion or cultural political discussion, yeah, that I think the land acknowledgement phenomenon is starting to really get attention. I think quite a lot of people are not pleased about it. Like a lot of people, I'm hardly original in saying this, but when I first heard a land acknowledgement, actually, I think I saw one. Somebody had a plaque on like the front of their driveway, sort of thing. Like it was a gated property, and on the front there was a land acknowledgement. And I remember seeing that. I think it was either in Vancouver or Kelowna many years ago. And my initial reaction was, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so this isn't your land. Why have you got a gate? Why have you got a locked door? Like, why are you here? This is not your land. What are you doing here? But it's this kind of disconnect between words and actions that, we're all so familiar with these days.
Well, all right, moving on to international news.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
U.S. official says Ukraine has agreed to a peace proposal as Zelensky says much work lies ahead.
We'll see about that. I mean, God, how long this has dragged on and how many times people have been certain that it was a done deal and all this, like, gone back years. I don't know. And this has been complicated massively by some intelligence agency. I would imagine it's an intelligence agency. I don't know from what country, maybe a European country, has released that audio. Someone basically hacked into Steve Witkoff's phone, the special envoy that's supposed to be negotiating all of this. And that's an attempt, I think, to sabotage this deal. And I don't know if it is enough to sabotage it, but he does say some quite strange things where he's like, he advises Vladimir Putin's servant in how to like get what you want from Donald Trump and how to please him by referring to him as a peacemaker and things like that. So that might yet cause problems. Trump's said that it's fine and he's not bothered, but then I don't know. That's clearly it's like a last minute attempt to sabotage it. But interestingly, in that conversation, the most interesting part of that conversation, I don't think it is that he tells the guy how to seduce Donald Trump. I think the most interesting thing is that he says, I know what you guys want. It's the Donbass. Oh, no, sorry, not the Donbass. It's Donetsk. Just Donetsk, which is one oblast of the 4 oblasts that Russia has colonized and conquered and intends to take away from Ukraine. And if that is the case, and that's the deal, is they get Donetsk and the other ones remain Ukrainian territory, I mean, that would be a huge victory for Ukraine. But I don't know, maybe that was just out of context or something, and that's not the whole story. But I think the Ukrainians would settle for that. And if that is indeed the offer, then yeah, there will be a deal, I reckon.
Yep, I think we have a clip here to play actually on this, CNN's announcement.
We have some breaking news coming in. Moments ago, we are learning into CNN from a U.S. official that Ukraine has agreed to a peace proposal with Russia, saying only, quote, minor details are outstanding. Now, this as Ukraine's President Zelensky, though, says that more work needs to be done. Adding to the nuance here, in a post on X, Ukraine's National Security Secretary writes that the delegations had, quote, reached a common understanding on the core terms of the agreement discussed in Geneva. Overnight, a new wave of deadly strikes exchanged between Russia and Ukraine. At least 7 people were killed in Ukraine, 3 in Russia. So the war grinds on regardless.
And that official was not named. So we will see. I believe Trump's set a November 27th deadline, which is tomorrow. So
I mean, he likes to set deadlines. Do they really signify anything? I mean, there were other deadlines for this war. I seem to remember one of his deadlines was the first day in office he'll end this war. So yeah, I don't know what to think of that.
Another deadline that's come and gone wasn't it July 21st that Carney was supposed to have a deal with Trump?
Yeah, there were two deadlines. That was pushed back a little bit, and then that one was also missed. And now it's like I don't even care.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Anyway, I'm just or I wouldn't put too much weight into that. I'm just script now, just so I could get it right. Witkoff said to Vladimir Putin's foreign policy advisor, "I know what it's going to take to get a peace deal done. Donetsk and maybe a land swap somewhere." Now, if that's true, that means that Zaporizhia, Luhansk, and Kherson, the other provinces that Russia controls now, almost all of those provinces, that they would be returned to Ukraine. Is that for real? I mean, that would be such an enormous defeat for the Russians. That would be like dreadful. I imagine Crimea is also included in that, so that the Russians would get Crimea and Donetsk.
Yes.
But still, to lose even Luhansk,
Donbass too.
And that seems to me, I don't know. But if that's what they're working on, then good times for Ukraine, really. I mean, obviously they've lost an oblast like a province. They've lost part of their country as well as Crimea, but it could have been a lot worse, and they'll still get to keep hold of quite a lot of important land. So I don't know. That if that's the case, then yeah, I would expect the Ukrainians would say yes, but I just can't imagine the Russians would say yes to that. Why would they? They literally control that territory now.
Time will tell. And then this last story, I don't know much about it. Jim put this in. Federal judge issues injunction blocking President Trump's pardon of Gobble. Do you know anything about this one?
Gobble? Is she a turkey?
Oh, yeah.
Gobble has been ordered to report to the butcher immediately, so I guess she is a turkey. I have to admit I don't know anything about this at all.
Yep, same.
Do we have a video there? Yeah, we do, by the looks of things. Maybe that'll educate us.
Anyway, are you ready? Gobble, I just want to tell you this very important. You are hereby unconditionally pardoned.
Yeah, somebody's already mocking us for that. Yeah, US presidents do this every year. Every Thanksgiving, they pardon the turkey. It's a stupid tradition. But I always thought it was this... Right, so this guy, whoever he is, Nick Saunders, is... I get it. I get it now. It's all
Satire.
fiction. It's all a bit of banter.
Yeah, in the original thumbnail, I thought the turkey had been photoshopped in, but it is truly a turkey.
Which makes my earlier jokes completely pathetic, really, and just pitiable, if anything. I should be pitied for that. But yeah, they love to pardon a turkey, and I guess the joke is they hate Trump so much, the judiciary, that they would, block that pardon. Ha ha ha. Trump, Trump, Trump. I guess that's the gist of that joke. There's one thing that I was going to put in there that I didn't put in, by the way, that we should maybe mention, which is that the Americans are going to charge loads of money for foreigners now who want to go to the most popular national in America, like Yosemite and the Grand Canyon and the one in Colorado. What's that one called? Smoky Mountains. So that is what it's called, isn't it? No, it's not. Rocky Mountain. That's what it's called, the Colorado one. So that massively sucks. It's like going to be $250 now to get the annual pass, whereas Americans, like $250 US, whereas the Americans are going to pay $80. Damn them. So yeah, if you're planning on a trip to America to go to the national parks, which I think is like the best thing about America, personally, then you might want to wait, or you might want to save up some extra money.
Maybe Canadians should put foreign pricing on our national parks. Another way to generate some income.
They could get hella money doing that.
Lake Louise.
For Banff, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Lake Louise, get massive money for that. But then it might start some kind of war with China, and that would be seen as a declaration of war against the Chinese people, I think. So might not be allowed.
All right.
But yeah, I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if you've been to American national parks very often, but they are rammed with foreigners. Like, it's fair to say. And there have been times when I've been there, and I've taken, because the campsites are really hard to obtain. There aren't enough campsites, and there's huge amounts of demand. And I can remember getting a campsite as a filthy foreigner as I am, and I can remember on a couple of occasions there were like American families who couldn't get one, and I was kind of thinking like, I almost felt a bit bad. I was like, sorry, America, I'm a foreigner stealing your campsite here. So I can see why they've done this, because that must upset some Americans to think that they can't, like, foreigners get access to this, but they don't, kind of thing.
All right. Well, that's our show. We are live every weekday at 9 a.m. Thank you for watching The Really Big Show on Now Media, and have a lovely Wednesday. I guess tomorrow's Thanksgiving in the States, and then it's good old Black Friday.
Buy some junk.
Yeah, consumerism's Christmas.
Lightning Rod just said I'm a real badass. That's the note on which to finish.
There you
Lightning Rod is a real badass.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.